Hey there, Mrs. Elke here. Today we are going to do a collage based on a bird that likes to hang out near the water. This case, a heron. So I want to walk you step by step through doing the background, getting the drawing on there, and then of course filling the bird in with various pieces of magazines or calendar pages. So come along and enjoy. Here are some examples of some previous students' work making a variety of different types of water birds. I tried to give them selections based on birds from all over. For this project, I will be using a piece of construction paper. I recommend doing the larger size, which I believe would be the 9 by 18 or the 12 by 18. I'm going to be using a pencil, scissors, and you can either use Mod Podge, decoupage, or liquid glue, whichever you have lying around. You could use stick glue too. And then I will also be using some calendars. You could also use magazines as well. I've got tissue paper, mostly in shades of blues and greens. And then I have my reference photos. So I just went online and looked for various water birds. Notice that the birds take up a good amount of the photo, and they aren't even the entire bird. It's mostly just the head, neck, and chest of the bird. And I just tried to get a variety of kinds. Some of them are vertical, some of them are horizontal. And I tried to get birds from all over the place that had interesting head shapes and neck shapes. I tend to like the ones that have those necks that look like an S, but other ones work as well. So once you have a variety of water birds, you can decide on which one you would like to do. I wanted to do a heron, so I think I'm going to do this one. However, if I wanted this heron, I would actually turn my paper sideways. So just kind of consider which way your bird is facing and turn your paper accordingly. Now I want to show you how I go about drawing the bird head on my paper. The most important thing is to please make sure that it's large enough. I'm going to start with a circle where the head is, and I want to do it very large on my paper. You can start pressing lightly and then get a little bit harder as you draw. That's about where I want my head to be. Next, I'm going to map out where the beak is by just making a line to show the direction of the beak and about where it goes. Next, I'm going to make a line that would be about down the center of the neck. So I'm not making the thickness of the neck yet, just a line to show where the neck is going. Okay, I want to keep this really basic so far. So a circle and 2 lines. Can't get more basic than that. To map out. Notice it's nice and big on my paper. I'm using up all of the space of the paper. No teeny tiny birds floating in the middle. We want to really use up the space. Now that I've got my guidelines, I can go in and add elements that make it look more like a bird instead of just 2 lines. So you can kind of go around your guidelines. I'm not even erasing them, I'm leaving them there. And I'm going to add in the thickness of the neck. I'm going to add in the outline of the head and any other details that I need. Oh, making sure these line up correctly here. Adding any other details I need to make this look like the bird in my picture. Trying to pay attention to the feathers, the direction that those grow. And then the body of the bird, like so. Once you get a general outline of the bird, you can kind of go back in and start looking for some of the details on the inside of the bird. So the beak actually goes into the head a little bit more, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in. You can add an eye there, although we'll probably add eyes at the very top. But if you just want to see about where it goes, you can always put it in. If you have any change in colors, I've got some darker areas that I want to put in. Change about where the feathers go. It's a very rough sketch. Notice I'm not even erasing any of my guidelines because all of it will get covered eventually anyway. All right, I'm happy with that general sketch. Now I'm going to get going. So I'm putting some liquid glue into a cup and I'm using an old paintbrush. And if you want to, you can even add a little bit of water with your glue. Sometimes I use my little spray bottle to do that. Next, I am painting around my bird, and then I'm putting some tissue paper down and then painting over the top of it again with glue. And you can see my tissue overlaps. It's okay if it folds in places. I'm just trying to get a good covering of the paper all around my bird. Once I put a piece down, I add glue on top of it as well. That way, if other pieces overlap it, you won't have any paper hanging off, and it gives it just a really nice, solid covering. Making sure that it's sticking down to the paper. If it folds funny, it's not a big deal because I'm adding lots of pieces that can overlap. And if you want to do a variety of colors at once, kind of overlapping each other, you can do that. I'm going to try to make mine so that it has light green on the top, and then it'll get into a darker green towards the bottom, and then blue, kind of like a water right behind the bird at the very bottom of my paper. You can fold the paper to make it smaller so that it can fit, or you can rip it into smaller pieces or cut it into smaller pieces as well. These pieces could be cut like I have, or you can just rip them. It is up to you. So I'm going to continue doing this until I get the entire top section of my paper covered. I am trying to be somewhat careful around the bird, but if I overlap into the bird, it's okay. Here you can see I've been working a little bit longer now. I've got more colors on. I've found that it's easiest to just pick up the papers with my brush instead of my fingers because my brush is so sticky that they just stick right on. And now I am working into the darker greens. So I'm trying to transition from my lights to my darks, and I'm adding those in as well. And you can kind of bounce back and forth between the two if that works for you. I just want to get the entire background filled with this tissue paper. You can see I'm overlapping some of my light greens, which is totally fine. You can just add some variety in color to your pictures. I'm just going to keep on going with the green until I run out of room. Now on the very bottom, I wanted to add some water, so I started off by layering some blue, and now I'm going to add a couple of darker pieces to kind of make it look like there's ripples in the water. So I might even cut some into thinner shapes here and then kind of layer them and place them so it looks like there's a little bit of movement in the water behind this heron. If there happens to be any paper that is hanging off the edge, you can always cut it with your scissors. All right, my background is looking great. So now I am going to start in on my bird. And the first thing I want to do is find pictures that have the same colors or similar colors as my bird. And I'm going to go ahead and maybe rip out some of these calendar pages, and then I'm going to cut sections that have the colors I'm looking for and just make a bunch of pieces that I can use in my bird. I am using mostly pieces that are kind of longer and skinnier because I think they work nicely for feathers, but you can do whatever shapes you want. And I am just going to make a collection of some of the colors that I see in my bird. I'll make little piles of each of those shapes on the side here so that when I get to that color on my bird, I have those colors ready to use. And so it's probably better to get a little bit more than what you think you need because there is a lot of layering, and so you may need more than you originally planned. So I've got all my colors ready and I'm ready to start. Very important, always start at the bottom right of the bird. So, or the bottom of the bird and work your way up to the head. Okay, start at the back, work your way to the front. Let me repeat that again. Start at the back and work your way to the front. All right, I need a little bit more glue and I am ready to go. So I'm starting at the bottom corner of the bird. And in my case, my bird is super dark. So I'm doing the same thing I did with the tissue where I am painting first with the glue and then I'm adding the pieces on top. And the reason I'm working from the back to the front or from the bottom up to the head is because of the way that the feathers layer. The feathers on top of the bird lay over the ones underneath them or below them. So we're working kind of backwards to front, right? We want the bottom feathers to be on the bottom part of the bird, and then the ones on the top will lay over the top of them. So very important, make sure that you start at the bottom of your bird so that your feathers can lay the right direction. And you can see as I'm working here, I'm just trying to match the value and the color on my bird. So I have a really dark area on the bottom here. I started off with very dark paper, and now I am working up towards the top parts of the back of the bird, and those are lighter, so my paper is getting lighter. And my paper is a little bit more purple and pink than the actual bird, but it was the closest I could find, and if the value matches how light or dark it is, then it should still work out just fine. So starting with this back of the bird, trying to get all of my pages layered in there. As you can see, I've sped it up quickly. Now I am working on the bottom of the neck, trying to get some of those darker areas in there first, and then working up into the lighter areas as well. I'm just trying to layer those pieces so that they overlap each other, because that will help give the feather look on my bird, my heron. Now I am currently living in or near La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it's right by the Mississippi River, so we get all kinds of birds migrating through here. We have a bunch of eagles, and we have a bunch of swans. Ooh, I'm working on the white areas now. We have pelicans and lots of herons. It is not uncommon to see a heron every time I go down to this marsh area by the water. They are usually hanging out, standing near the edges of the water. or flying around. We see them flying around as well. Notice that I have also put in some words. If you have a white area of your bird or maybe a gray area, I find it super fun to add some text to these collages as well. So I just cut out some of a paragraph in a magazine, and I am putting that in between some of my colors just to give it something interesting to look at. So if you want to add text to your picture, you could do that as well. All right, I've finally made it up to the head of my bird, so I am continuing to layer my colors on my head as well. And I wanted to show you the head especially because it gets a little bit trickier with some of the smaller details. So I am trying to be kind of careful where I am placing my pieces here, and notice that the eye would take a lot more work to go around, so I'm actually just going to take a piece of paper and go right over the top of my eye. I can always add my eye in later. I didn't want to sit there and try to cut up teeny tiny pieces to go around my eye. But that again is my personal preference. If you'd rather try to go around your eye, you could do that as well. Trying to get all of these pieces in. You may have to cut pieces to more specific shapes to get into the spots that you need them to get into. And here I am covering up pretty much the entire face of the bird, trying to keep the colors correct here. And the beak, of course, is going to be a lot skinnier, so I can't use really fat pieces on my beak. So those I have to cut up into smaller pieces to make them fit on that narrow section of my bird. So I am getting those there. Trying to make them nice and neat. To fill in the top part of the beak with like this darker blue. And then the tip of the beak and the bottom of the beak are the yellow. So I'm going to make sure that that works as well. And again, every piece that I'm putting down, I have glue underneath it, and then I also have glue on top of it as well, so that it is kind of sealed on, and that will give it really nice attachment to the picture. I've got really small pieces here on the top for the beak, ready to go. All right, now I'm going to add the eye on top of all of those white feathers. So I just wanted to show you how I do that. I started with a black piece, and then I'm going to layer a yellow piece on top of that for the eye. And then on top of the yellow piece, do another black piece for the eye as well. So you can see that was actually a layering of 3 different pieces of paper to get that eye coming to life. And there you have my finished bird. My blue heron is all done. The background has come together. All of the feathers look nice. I really tried to get that shading in. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please like and subscribe down below. I cannot wait to see how your birds turned out. You can always share them with me on my Instagram at Lori Elke, or on my Facebook page, Lori Elke's Art. Thanks so much for watching.